My name's Nathaniel Rhodes, Park Ranger, Appalachian District 14. If you're hearing this, then I guess the tape got out. I didn't plan to make a recording. It started happening, like something needed proof, something wanted to be remembered. It was a Thursday, overcast, no moon to speak of. The air sat heavy, and the ridge roads looked darker than they should have been. That's when dispatch called in a 911 relay. They said there was a kid lost near Cinder Ridge, somewhere close to the old fire road. But the weird part wasn't the call. It was the voice. The operator said the kid's voice sounded older. She played the clip for me. It was maybe 7 seconds long. A child's voice, trembling but calm. "I'm by the stone tower. Please, it's getting late." That's all. No name, no landmarks, no GPS ping. Just that phrase, the stone tower. Problem is, there's no stone tower anywhere near Cinder Ridge. We don't have towers made of anything but rusted steel and paint from the 1960s. Still, I geared up. Habit. Years of chasing lost hikers, poachers, teenagers playing ghost stories. The truck engine coughed to life. Fog hung low, sliding between the trees like smoke. The kind of fog that doesn't move with the wind, it just sits. And for some reason, I felt it before I even reached the first turnoff. That thing I've learned not to ignore after all these years. The quiet. You spend enough nights alone in the woods, you get to know what the forest should sound like. Owls, bugs, branches snapping somewhere deep where the deer run. But this? Nothing. No crickets. No wind through pine needles, just my boots on gravel and the hum of the radio. When I reached the fire road, I saw it. An unmarked trailhead that wasn't there the week before. New signpost, fresh-cut wood. No trail number. And I swear to you, the mud had boot prints. 2 sats, one going in, one coming out. Only they weren't the same size. I called out, "Ranger service, anyone out here?" And the forest answered, "Ranger late." Not Ranger Nate. Ranger late. I froze. I told myself it was the echo bouncing weird off the trees, the fog, the valley's angle. But the voice, it came a beat too slow, like it was thinking about what to say. I radioed dispatch, told them I was entering an unlisted trail. They said my signal was fine. But as I stepped forward, the static thickened, like the woods were eating the sound. Every call-out from then on came back warped. I'd say, "Copy that," and the radio would spit, "That, copy." Not real. Real. Not real. That's how I kept grounding myself, saying it under my breath. Every step, another whisper. Not real. Real. Not real. The fog thinned for a second, enough to see ahead, a shape nailed to a tree. It was small, metallic. I thought maybe a lost dog tag or gear, but when I got closer, my stomach dropped. It was a junior ranger badge, laminated plastic, torn at the corner, pinned to the bark not with metal but with a splinter of cedar, a twig sharpened to a perfect point. I pulled my flashlight closer. The name was burned into the laminate, edges melted just enough to distort the letters, but I could still make out the last name. Rhodes, my name. I remember saying out loud, "That's not possible," because I'd never even been a junior ranger. I didn't grow up around here. I joined the service after the floods in Tennessee. That badge shouldn't exist. And then footsteps, pacing, behind me. Always just out of sync. One when I took two when I stopped. I turned the light. Nothing. Turned again. The truck was maybe 20 feet behind me, dome light still off. And then it turned on. The kind of small thing that only hits when it's wrong. It was like something had leaned in through the window and flipped the switch with deliberate care. I walked back fast, telling myself I'd call it in, tag the trail, come back in daylight. But the fog didn't stay still anymore. It started moving against the wind, like it wanted me to stay. I caught a glint through the brush, just a glimmer, like light on metal. I told myself it was a can, a reflector, maybe some hiker's trash, but when I reached it, there was no metal. It was stone. A stump of a tower, knee-high, covered in moss. The shape of it, circular, rough-hewn, handmade, old, older than any 3C marker I'd ever seen. I circled it once, twice, trying to make sense of the pattern, but then I noticed my own boot prints right where I hadn't stepped. They looped the stump again and again, perfect circles, like I'd been there before. And then a voice behind me, small, close. "You finally made it back." I turned so fast the flashlight dropped. When I picked it up, the fog had filled the space where the voice came from, and the tower felt warm. I can't explain what happened next. One second I was standing there, and the next, I was back by the truck. Door open, dome light off again. The radio whispering that same 7-second clip on repeat. "I'm by the stone tower. Please, it's getting late." But this time the voice wasn't a child's. It was mine. Not real, real, not real. That's when I realized this wasn't the first time someone walked me out of these woods. It was just the first time I remembered. With you hearing this, don't go looking for the stone tower. It doesn't want to be found twice. The next morning, I filed the report like nothing happened. That's what you do when you're alone too long in the woods. You normalize the things that don't make sense. Call it weather interference, call it fatigue. Anything but what it felt like. I wrote, "Possible prank. Found unauthorized trailhead signage. We'll recheck tomorrow." And that was that. I left out the badge, the voice, the tower. At HQ, everything smelled like burnt coffee and wet canvas. My supervisor barely looked up when I signed in. He was half listening to the morning weather advisory. "Storm system sliding down from the north," he said. "Might wash out the ridge trails. Take Maya if you go back out." Maya was the new seasonal ranger, fresh out of forestry school, smart, curious. Too curious. She'd already heard the chatter. Someone must have told her I'd gone chasing a ghost call the night before. She leaned on the doorframe, grinning. "You really went looking for a kid that didn't exist?" I tried to keep it light. Can't ignore a distress call, even if it's a bad one. She nodded, but I could see the question behind her eyes. She'd heard the recording, too. Dispatch had played it over morning briefing like it was a joke. The haunted kid on the ridge. I told her we'd do a perimeter sweep, log any new trails and check for illegal campsites. But really, I just needed to see it again. I needed to prove to myself that what I saw was a trick of the fog. Nothing more. The drive up took longer than usual. The GPS glitched twice, showing me facing east when the road was due north. By the time we hit the switchbacks, the fog was gone, but the air still felt thick, like standing under a low ceiling. Maya was looking out the window, jotting notes in her field log. She said the forest looked flat, like someone turned the contrast down on a photo. I wanted to laugh it off, but I saw it too. Every shade of green seemed faded, like the world had been washed once too many times. We parked near mile marker 17, same spot as last night. Only this time, no fog, no weird echo. Just birds, crickets, the normal sounds of a living forest. I thought that would make me feel better. It didn't. The unmarked trailhead was still there. Signpost, fresh wood, even the boot prints, fainter but still visible in the dirt. I bent down to photograph them, feeling a chill crawl up my back when I noticed something new. The smaller set, the ones that didn't match the first, now had a third step. A tiny heel mark beside them, like someone else had joined the walk overnight. "Looks new," Maya said. "Maybe kids?" I wanted to say yes. But no kid would hike this deep, not with the weather coming in. Still, I nodded. Probably. We followed the path slowly, taking turns marking waypoints. Every 30 yards, we tied red flagging tape, bright, easy to spot on the return trip. Standard procedure. Only later did I realize something was wrong with the spacing. Every time I turned back, the flags looked closer together than they should have been, like the forest was swallowing distance. About an hour in, we found an information kiosk, wood frame, plexiglass front, clean laminate. Except it wasn't one of ours. Wrong font, wrong logo, wrong everything. The map showed a loop trail called Cinder Ridge Circle. No record of it in any database. The loop formed a perfect circle, impossible terrain for that. Maya tapped the map, frowning. "You ever seen this before?" I shook my head. She squinted at the label. "Ranger Station. Roads Post." That last part made me freeze. "Probably a typo," I said too fast. I could feel her looking at me, curious, but I kept walking. The air felt heavier here, thicker with that silent vibration, like standing next to a generator underground. It's something your bones notice before your ears do. And I noticed the way my compass needle tilted toward the trees, not north. I told Maya to mark the anomaly and radio it in. Her voice cracked through static when she tried. "Thace, this is Ranger 2, checking trail." "No reading? You're not at bridge yet?" I frowned. "Bridge?" "Yeah," she said. "Mile 3 footbridge, remember? We're supposed to meet there by 1600. But we weren't at a bridge. We were standing beside a kiosk in dry pine needles. And then she said something that made my skin crawl. "I can see your truck from here." The forest went quiet again. I turned a slow circle, scanning through the trees. We were miles from the parking lot. And yet, through the thin gaps in the ridge, I thought I saw something glinting. Metal. A reflection, just for a second. Maybe a windshield. I didn't say anything, just told her to keep logging and stay close. The trail sloped down into a small hollow where the air felt 10 degrees colder. My breath started fogging even though the sun still cut through the branches. And there it was again, that smell. If you've ever worked near an old mine shaft, you know it. Cold stone, rust, and something faintly metallic, like blood, but older. I told myself it was runoff, maybe iron deposits in the soil. But my flashlight caught something glimmering just beyond the trees. Circular stones, half buried. I thought it was the same stump from the night before, but no, this was different. This one was smaller, newer, and someone had placed a pile of cedar twigs neatly in the center. Maya crouched down to take a photo. "Looks like a marker," she said. "For what?" I asked. "Maybe a memorial?" I wanted to agree, but the way the sticks were laid out, perfectly symmetrical, pointing inward, it didn't look like any memorial I'd ever seen. The wind picked up then, brushing through the branches. Only it didn't sound like wind. It sounded like whispering. Too soft to make out words, but close enough that we both froze. Maya looked up at me, eyes wide. "Did you hear?" "Yeah," I said, cutting her off. Because I did, and I recognized it. The same pitch, the same tone, the same delay. "Echo," I said, forcing a smile that didn't feel real. Just an echo. But when I called her name, just to prove it, the forest gave it back. Late. Always a beat too late. "Maya?" "Hiya." "Ranger Nate." "Ranger late." I told her we were done for the day. We'd tag the site, come back tomorrow with backup, better radios. She agreed, but as we turned back toward the trail, I noticed something wrong with the red tape. Every marker we'd tied now pointed in the same direction, not toward the trailhead, toward the stone circle. Not real, real, not real, not real, not. I whispered it again, quietly, so she wouldn't hear. And for the first time that day, I started to think maybe I wasn't talking to myself anymore. We didn't speak much on the walk back. Every few minutes I'd stop to check the compass, pretending I was verifying bearings. Truth was, I just wanted to hear something. A bird, a branch, anything normal. But the forest had gone silent again. That same oppressive stillness pressing down on my ears. And somewhere inside it, beneath the hush, I could hear that rhythm, like something pacing us. When we reached the hollow, Maya pointed. "The stream's up ahead. That'll take us straight to the bridge." She was right. You could hear the faint trickle of water, breaking the silence like static. I felt my shoulders ease a little. The bridge came into view, an old wooden footbridge crossing a narrow creek. I'd been here a dozen times, back when this trail still made sense. Except the creek was running backwards. I blinked hard. Foam slid upstream, against the current, like the whole world was rewinding itself. Then it flickered, and the water went normal again. Maya didn't notice. She was busy snapping photos of the graffiti carved into the railing. Names, dates, hearts, initials. She called out, "There's a new one here. Says, 'Back again.' Weird, right?" I looked over her shoulder. The letters were fresh, carved deep, but the edges weren't raw. They looked smoothed over, as if they'd been there for years. I didn't want to touch the railing, but my hand brushed it anyway. It was warm. Something moved under the bridge. A soft, scraping sound like fingers on stone. Then, humming. A child's voice, faint, tuneless, humming the same phrase over and over. There and back again. Maya crouched, shining her light underneath. "Probably a kid," she said, forcing a laugh. "Maybe one of the campers." But she stopped talking. Her flashlight beam caught nothing. No child, no raccoon. Just a small mound of wet cedar twigs stacked neatly in the mud. I asked her to radio dispatch, tell them we found possible signs of a campfire or ritual. She tried, and this time the radio answered before she spoke. "You're not at the bridge. You're still at the kiosk." Her face went pale. "That's not funny," she said. I told her to stop talking and just listen. The radio repeated her own words exactly. "That's not funny." But it came 2 seconds too late. Same voice, same tone. A perfect copy. She dropped the handset and stepped back. We both heard it then, a long, slow creak from across the bridge, like someone had just put weight on the other end. I swung the flashlight that way. A man stood at the tree line. Too still. Uniform, like ours, but older. Canvas shirt, dark suspenders. A round CCC insignia from the 1930s. He was holding something long and thin, a surveying rod. "Sir," I called. "Park Service." "You okay?" He didn't move, didn't speak. The only thing he did was tilt the rod downward, slowly, until it pointed at the ground, right where our shadows met. Then he lifted his free hand and waved, but not like a greeting. His palm faced himself, not us. A backwards wave, like someone looking in a mirror. The people is gone, and he was gone. No footsteps, no sound. Just the low creak of the bridge settling in the cold. Maya whispered, "Did you see that?" I said yes, but the word came out like it didn't belong to me. We crossed fast. I wanted to be out of there, get back to the truck, pretend this never happened. But halfway across, my compass started spinning. It stopped, needle pinned toward the bank we'd just left. The side where the stone tower stump waited somewhere beyond the trees. That's when the whisper came again. Not from behind this time, but inside the static of the radio still dangling from Maya's belt. "Ranger late." I took the radio, switched it off. But the voice didn't stop. It just moved, from the air to the water, from the water to the wood beneath our feet. The bridge creaked once more. And then the wind came back, cold, heavy, moving against the direction it should. We hurried across, cutting straight toward the path we'd flagged earlier. But every red tape marker we'd tied had rotated again, all pointing the same way, back toward the creek. We hurried across, didn't look back. The forest grew darker, even though my watch said it was barely 2 in the afternoon. And somewhere in that growing dark, I could swear I heard someone walking just behind us. Footsteps, perfectly matched to mine. 1 step late. Always 1 step late. Footsteps stop. 7. When we reached the trailhead clearing, the light changed again, flat, colorless, unreal. Our truck waited exactly where we'd left it. Everything normal. Except for one thing. There were footprints around the tires. Small ones. Their feet. I looked at Maya. She didn't say anything. Neither did I. We climbed in, shut the doors, and drove. The entire way down the ridge, neither of us spoke. The radio stayed off, but the static didn't. It hummed faintly from somewhere deep inside the truck, like the sound was coming from behind the dash, from wires that shouldn't have been live. Not real, real, not real. When I parked at HQ, I reached for the keys, but they weren't in the ignition. They were already in my pocket. I didn't tell Maya about the badge. I didn't tell her what the voice said. All I wrote in the logbook was, Survey anomaly near Cinder Ridge. Visual disturbance. Possible trespasser. Then I closed the book, sat there in the office light for a long time, and listened to the faint hum inside the walls. It was saying something. Over and over, soft enough that I could almost ignore it. There and back again. I spent the next morning trying to convince myself it was just exhaustion. 2 late nights, high altitude, lack of sleep, things that mess with your head. I typed up my report, labeled it Unverified Auditory Anomaly. That made it sound official, contained, harmless. But the words didn't feel right. They looked wrong on the page, like they were vibrating just under the ink. Maya hadn't shown up yet. When she finally did, she looked different, pale, distracted. She didn't even take her jacket off. "Did you dream about the creek?" she asked. I froze mid-sentence. "Why?" She hesitated. "Because I did. And in the dream, you were already there. You were standing in the water." I didn't answer her, just told her to grab her pack. If we were both seeing things, it meant we needed to verify, not speculate. That's what fieldwork is supposed to be. Proof. Evidence. Something solid. The drive back felt shorter this time, like the forest was closer than before. The GPS blinked out entirely, just a frozen arrow on a gray field. No roads, no coordinates. I called HQ, tried to check in. The radio hissed back, same rhythm as before. Copy, copy, copy. And then silence. We parked near the lower ridge at an access road that hadn't been used in years. The wooden sign was splintered, mossed over, but someone had scratched fresh letters into it. Cinder Ridge Circle. Maya frowned. Someone's messing with us. I wanted to believe that. God, I needed to believe that. We geared up and started the hike. Standard sweep pattern, 5-meter spacing. Mark anything off map. At least that's what I told myself. But part of me was listening for something else. The hum, the echo, the child's voice. Halfway up the ridge, we met someone. She was standing by a fallen birch, sorting herbs into a canvas pouch. Maybe 70 years old, wiry, face like she'd been carved from bark. Locals called her Eula. She lived alone in a cabin down past the valley. Used to report poachers or fires, always polite, always barefoot. She looked up before I could speak. "You warmed the stones with your breath, didn't you?" I asked what she meant. She just smiled, toothless and calm. "They remember heat. The old ones. You should have kept walking." I tried to steer the conversation back to normal ground. Trail maintenance, safety, local history. She humored me, told me about her grandfather's time in the Civilian Conservation Corps, how they built towers up here during the Depression. Only not for fire watching. They weren't meant to see smoke, she said. They were meant to see back. That's when Maya asked her if she'd ever heard the name Cinder Ridge Circle. Eula nodded slowly. "It's not a circle, dear. It's a mouth. The ground there don't close right." Before I could ask more, thunder rolled somewhere far off. Eula stuffed her herbs back into her pouch and pointed up trail. "If you see a perfect shape out there, don't step into it." She turned and walked away barefoot through the undergrowth. Never looked back. Not once. We followed her direction, heading deeper toward where the ridge folded in on itself. That's where we found the cabin. It shouldn't have been there. Not on any map, not in any record. Logs bleached white by time, windows nailed shut. A A single door, slightly open. Inside, it smelled like old smoke and iron, dustless, too clean for how long it had supposedly been empty. On the wall hung a Junior Ranger poster, backwards, the text mirrored. The badge image, same cedar twig through the laminate. Maya lifted her flashlight. "You seeing this?" Yeah, I was seeing it. I was seeing too much. On the stove lay a half-burned logbook, Park Service issue, 1930s era. I opened it expecting mildew and blank pages, but the ink was fresh. My handwriting. Weather notes, supply counts, everything written in my own style, my own shorthand. And one entry circled 3 times. Maya, late again. She leaned closer. "Is this a joke?" I didn't answer. I couldn't. The last page listed a name under supervisor, Eula Varner, and the date was tomorrow. I felt the floor tilt under me, like the air itself had shifted weight. That's when Maya found the photograph. A black and white crew portrait, 330 workers standing beside a tower of stone, half built. She handed it to me, and my throat closed. Because there I was, back row, hand on a shovel, eyes scratched out. She whispered, "That's you." I didn't correct her, because it was. Even the uniform matched the one in the old Ranger archives. Every button, every crease. I shoved the logbook into my pack. Policy said leave evidence, tag the site, report later. But something told me if I left that book behind, I'd never see it again. Or worse, I'd see it everywhere. Maya tried to radio HQ again. The transmission went through, my voice, repeating hers. A 2-second delay. "Copy, we're at the cabin." "Copy, we're at the cabin." Exactly. Tone, cadence, breathing. But I wasn't pressing the button. Eula's words echoed in my head. "Don't step into a perfect shape." I looked down. The floorboards beneath us formed a circle, tight, dark wood-grain whorls meeting in the center like an eye. I told Maya we were leaving. Now. As we stepped out, I glanced back once through the cracked doorway. The cabin was dark. But for a moment, I thought I saw someone sitting inside. Small shape, child-sized, humming. There and back again. We didn't talk on the way back down. The woods felt wrong again, like someone had copied the world but lost a few details in the process. The trees stood at perfect distances from each other, unnatural spacing. Even the moss grew in circles. Maya was walking ahead of me, holding the compass. The needle spun once, then locked facing east, then west, then north again. I checked mine. It did the same. She said, trying to sound calm, "We should set markers, start a grid." That's what we're supposed to do. So we did. Flagging tape. Red triangles every 20 feet. Except the triangles weren't where we tied them. Every time I looked back, they'd shifted slightly, forming 3-point patterns in the air. I didn't tell her that. I didn't tell her how the shapes looked like surveyor marks, like the kind you see on blueprints for building something circular. When she stopped to catch her breath, I tried the radio again. The static sounded thicker, slower, like it was breathing. "Base, this is Ranger Rhodes. We've located an unlisted structure." "Rhodes, you're not at the structure." I froze. "Say again?" "You're not there yet." But the voice wasn't dispatch. It wasn't Maya either. It was me. I dropped the radio, didn't pick it back up. Maya looked at me, waiting for an explanation. I said, "Let's just keep moving." My voice didn't sound like mine anymore. We followed the ridgeline until the path curved back toward the creek. Somewhere below, water trickled faintly, except it didn't move the way it should. The sound came in pulses, like breathing through a crack in a door. Maya stopped suddenly. Her hand went to her chest. "Do you feel that?" The air pressure changed. That's the only way I can describe it. Like the forest exhaled. A low vibration moved through the soil, up my boots, into my spine. The sound wasn't outside anymore. It was inside my head. I called out her name just to ground myself. "Maya!" It came back from ahead of us. "Maya!" Perfect echo. But when I looked, she was standing right beside me. Not real, not real. She grabbed my arm hard. "Nate, the truck, look!" I turned, and there it was. The truck, parked not 50 feet behind us, keys in the door. Same dented fender, same mud spatter, like we'd never left. But we'd been walking for over an hour. I walked closer. The driver's door hung open, swaying in the breeze. I glanced at the ignition. Keys still there, except I could feel them, heavy in my pocket. I looked into the mirror and saw night. It was broad daylight all around me, but the reflection showed the same place hours later. Full dark, moonlight dripping through the trees. And in that reflection I saw movement behind the truck. Maya, walking across the bridge, flashlight shaking. I turned around. No one there. I told myself it was just a visual echo, some trick of the light. But deep down I knew better. This place wasn't repeating. It was recording. Every step, every breath, replaying us through time, like the forest was keeping a copy. We tried to leave, following the flagged route back toward HQ, but after 10 minutes we came across our own red tape again. The same pieces, tied the same way, only now they formed a complete circle. I took out the GPS. The track line on the screen showed a perfect ring, no matter which way we walked. Every direction curved back into itself. "We're looping," Maya whispered. "It's not possible." Not real. Real. Not real. That's when I saw him again. The surveyor. Same uniform, same stance. He was closer now, maybe 30 yards away, just standing among the trees. His surveying rod pointed down, pressing gently into the ground. I lifted my hand to signal him. He mirrored me, same movement, same speed. Then he mouthed a single word. "Late." The sound around us died. No insects, no water, no wind, only our breathing. And then, the trees shifted. They didn't move like branches in a breeze. They rearranged, the trunks bending just slightly, aligning into a perfect circular corridor ahead of us. Through that opening, I could see something faint glowing deeper in the woods. A small pulse of light, steady, heartbeat rhythm. Maya grabbed my arm again. "Let's go back," I said. "We can't." She stared at me like she didn't recognize my voice. And maybe she didn't, because even as I said it, I realized the truth. I'd already gone forward. The forest wasn't holding us. It was following us. I stepped toward the light. One step, then two. Every time my boot hit the ground, I heard another pair of steps behind mine. Always a fraction late. "Ranger late." The voice was soft this time, almost kind. I didn't turn around, just kept walking toward that pulse in the dark. It wasn't light at all when I reached it. It was stone, the same kind as the stump I'd found before, only now it was taller, waist high. And inside the rock's grain, a handprint, small, child-sized, The glow came from there, faint, pulsing in rhythm with my own heartbeat. I lifted my hand, hovered it near the surface. The air between my skin and the stone was warm, too warm. I pulled back fast. The hum that had been droning around us stopped. The silence hit so hard it made my ears ring. And then, from somewhere behind us, the sharp sound of a branch snapping. We turned, but the woods were empty. That's when the surveyor stepped out again, closer than ever, maybe 10 feet away now. The rod still pointed down, but as I watched, he slowly angled it up, like he was drawing a doorframe in the air. I could feel it then, the shape forming, an invisible outline, colder than everything else around it. When he finished tracing it, he nodded once, and the air inside the frame shimmered like water. Maya whispered, "What is that?" I said nothing, because I knew. Some part of me had always known. It was a way back, not out, just back. I reached for the logbook in my pack, the one from the cabin. It felt heavier than it should, like it had something breathing inside it. The surveyor lifted his hand again, that same backward wave. Invitation. Farewell. Both. I should have turned away. I should have followed Eula's warning. But the door shimmered, and for a second, I saw daylight through it. My own reflection, standing on the other side, holding the same book. Then it vanished. Then, sudden silence. Maya was gone, and I was alone again. I don't remember falling asleep. I don't remember resting. All I know is when I opened my eyes, it was dark. Not night, just dark. Color gone, shadows flat. The kind of black that eats light. I checked my watch. It read 12:47 p.m. Midday. The world didn't smell right anymore. Pine and soil replaced by cold rock, dust, and something metallic, like rain on old tools. I called out for Maya. No answer. Only my own voice bounced back from somewhere close, but not quite the same. Maya! Late. The ground under me wasn't soil anymore. It was slate. Carved in rings, faint etchings spiraling out from where I stood. In the center, a small mound of stones stacked neatly. A tower now waist-high. The same one. Only this time it was growing. I circled it once, then twice. Each time the air temperature shifted, warm on one side, freezing on the other. And the hum. God, the hum. It had a rhythm now, steady, pulsing like a heartbeat that wasn't mine. I crouched down, shining the flashlight on the base. There were prints in the dirt. Boots, small feet, bare toes. They all overlapped, circling the tower in both directions, like hundreds of people walking around it endlessly. I took one step back and heard footsteps take one step forward. I spun around, beams slicing through empty trees. Nothing, just the dark, breathing softly. Then, from somewhere above, a voice crackled through the tree line. Don't look in the mirror. It was Maya, distant, thin, like she was broadcasting from inside a tunnel. I'm at the bridge, she said. Don't look in the mirror. I turned toward the truck instinctively, and there, through the driver's side window, I saw her, standing behind me in the reflection, perfectly still. Head tilted, hand raised in that same backward wave. I turned around fast. Empty forest. The hum grew louder. It wasn't coming from the tower anymore. It was coming from inside my chest. My heartbeat fell into sync with it, one beat late, always a breath behind. Not real, real, not real. Then the wind started to whisper again, forming syllables that slid between the trees. Ran, gur, la, te. Each fragment stretched thin, pulled apart by the distance between worlds. And then something stepped out from behind the tower. It was small, child-sized, wearing the same ranger patch I'd seen pinned to the cedar twig. Same badge, same name, Rhodes. But the face wasn't right. It wasn't a child's face anymore. It was mine, smoothed down, hollowed out, like someone sculpted it from wax. It spoke in that same calm, patient tone. Say the oath, Ranger. I shook my head. What oath? The loop oath. Its voice didn't echo like mine had. It layered, as if 3 versions spoke at once. There and back again. Warm the stone and let us in. I took another step back, hit the side of the tower. The stone pulsed, once, twice. Then heat spread through the air like a heartbeat. I tried to turn and run, but the forest rearranged again, trees shifting, paths bending. No matter where I turned, I was walking toward the tower. And then I saw them. The doors. 3 frames of air, colder than everything else, hanging motionless between the trees. No walls, no hinges, just outlines that moved. Sliding through the woods like predators circling prey. Every time they passed, the world inside them flickered, brief glimpses of other places. The ranger station, my office, Maya at her desk laughing, a highway at dusk, and behind it all, faint sound. Coffee pouring, key chime, radio chatter, all happening at once. The child, my other self, walked toward one of the doors. It pressed a hand against the shimmer. This is where we go back, it said. I whispered, back where? Back. The air inside the door rippled again, and I saw it. A version of me, younger, standing on the other side with a radio in hand. He was talking into it, repeating words I hadn't said yet. I stumbled backward, tripping over the stone pile. The hum broke into static. The tower was glowing now, veins of light running through it like molten cracks. The heat burned my palms even though I wasn't touching it. The child looked at me one last time. You warmed it. You called us. Who are you? I asked. It smiled, showing teeth too small, too white. We're the ones you left behind. I wanted to ask more, but the words got stuck in my throat. Because I could hear something inside my head. A whispering chorus, layered and infinite. My own voice repeating itself backward and forward in time. There and back again. And over that chorus, one single whisper stood out clearer than the rest. Don't step into a perfect shape. Eula's voice. I spun around. The chalk circle from her cabin was there on the ground behind me. But I'd already stepped through it. The hum vanished. So did the doors. Even the tower looked smaller again, as if it had retreated. But the prints around it were new, fresh, wet, overlapping mine. Dozens of them. And one more voice, distant but rising. Late again, Ranger. I wanted to run, but I couldn't tell which direction was forward anymore. Every tree looked the same. Every breath sounded delayed. And somewhere between one step and the next, the forest stopped being forest and became memory. Not real, real, not real. I don't know how long I walked. Could have been hours, could have been minutes. The light didn't change anymore. Every direction looked like the last, and every step echoed one beat too late. I told myself I was heading back to HQ, that there'd be trucks, radios, real people, that I could explain this, file a report, close it out. But somewhere inside, I knew. I wasn't leaving. I was circling. I stopped. The air grew colder, then warmer, like I was walking, then warmer, like I was walking through invisible rooms. The forest flickered between seasons, green one moment, brittle frost the next. Leaves fell upward, wind blew in spirals. And then I saw it again. The cabin. It sat there in the hollow, same as before. But something about it was wrong. The windows were open now. Smoke drifted from the chimney. I stepped closer, hand on my sidearm out of instinct. A faint light pulsed behind the curtains, soft and orange like fire seen through fog. Inside, everything was rearranged. The stove had been cleaned, the table set with tin plates, and in the center, the logbook, open, waiting. I picked it up, meaning to check the last entry. But the pages started turning on their own. The pen, the same old ink pen from my pack, was writing by itself. My signature scrolled across the page. The date read, tomorrow. I dropped the book, heart pounding, but it landed open to an earlier entry, a short sentence written in neat block letters. Ranger Rhodes has completed the loop. The walls groaned. Dust fell from the rafters, and the photograph I'd seen before, the one of the CCC crew, slipped from the wall, landing face up. The scratched-out eyes were gone now. In their place, black streaks ran down the photo like tears, bleeding upward instead of down. As the ash lifted, the window behind it shimmered. Outside, daylight burned bright. The world I'd left. I could hear it. The sound of the office coffee pot, typing, Maya's laugh. A normal day. Except the sound was inside the window. I reached out, but the glass rippled cold against my fingers, and when I leaned closer, my reflection didn't move with me. It just stared back. Expression blank, mouth slightly open. Like it was waiting. You already signed, it said. You have to keep the balance. The floorboards creaked. A circle of chalk dust had appeared around my boots. The same kind Eula drew. But this one wasn't protecting me. It was closing. I tried to step out. Couldn't. Every muscle locked. The hum grew to a low roar, so deep it felt like my teeth were vibrating. The radio on my shoulder came alive again. A voice whispered through static. Ranger Rhodes' report. For a second, I thought it was dispatch. But no, it was me. Older, tired, breathing slow. If you're hearing this, it said, then you found the tower. You warmed the stones. Don't fight it. It needs a name. Say it. The room began to shift. The walls flattened, the corners bending inward, everything pulling toward the table in the logbook. The pages flipped again, the pen lifted, hovering above the paper. I felt pressure in my chest, as if my heartbeat was being pulled downward through the floor. Write it, the radio voice said. There and back. Back again, I reached out to stop the pen. My hand passed through it. The ink still moved, my name forming letter by letter. The hum peaked, then dropped out completely. No sound, no movement. Only the whisper of graphite across paper. When it stopped, the logbook shut itself. The cabin door opened by itself. Beyond it, the woods were pale, motionless, every branch perfectly still as if frozen mid-breath. And then, from far off, a child's voice. "You kept your promise." I looked down. The badge was pinned to my chest. Cedar twig through plastic. Exactly like before. I hadn't put it there. I stepped outside. The ground felt wrong, too smooth, too familiar. Boot prints everywhere, each one overlapping mine. When I reached the clearing, the surveyor was waiting, rod in hand, head tilted, the same half-smile he'd had before. But this time I recognized him. Not from the photo, from the mirror. He was me. He lifted the rod, planted it upright. The hum pulsed once, and the ground split with a faint sigh, like stone parting. Behind him, the child stood, and behind the child, dozens more shapes, rangers, workers, children, shadows of people all watching, their mouths moving together without sound. The child stepped forward, hand outstretched. "Say the oath," it whispered, "or you'll fade." There and back, I heard myself say, and back again. The words weren't mine anymore. They'd been waiting for my breath to shape them. The tower pulsed once more, light crawling up its side, and everything went quiet. Not real, real, not real. Then the voice again, Eula's this time, soft as wind through pine needles. "You can't leave what remembers you." The hum sank away, and I was alone again. At least, I think I was. Because when I looked down, the logbook lay open at my feet, and in my handwriting, fresh and wet, was one final note. If you're reading this, you've already walked the loop. It's morning again. At least, it looks like morning. I'm back at headquarters, or something that looks like it. Coffee smell in the air, same as always. The fluorescent light above my desk flickers in rhythm with my heartbeat. And the sound of the radio, constant, low, breathing and static. I can hear the others in the hallway. Maya's voice, the supervisor. Laughter, soft and distant, like it's coming from underwater. I open the office log, my handwriting. Page after page of entries dated the same week, repeating. The words slightly different each time, but the ending always identical. There and back again. I tell myself I'll drive out today, close the case, mark the site off limits. But when I check the map, it's already marked closed. Red ink, official stamp, dated a year ago. I don't remember writing it. The dispatcher's voice comes through the intercom. "Rhodes? You heading out to the ridge again today?" I freeze. "What call?" I ask. She hesitates. "Same one as before. Somebody hurt a kid near Cinder Ridge. Says he's lost. Says there's a stone tower that doesn't show up on the map." I stare at the radio. It hums softly. The same pulse, the same rhythm. I tell her I'll handle it. And I mean it. Because maybe this time, I'll end it right. The road up the ridge looks exactly the same. Every turn, every rut. Even the clouds sit in the same place they did before. The kind of déjà vu that aches. When I reach the trailhead, the unmarked post stands waiting. Fresh wood, no number, no decay. Boot prints, 2 sets, one coming in, one going out. The smaller ones still beside the larger. I should turn around. I know that, but I can't. The woods feel quieter than ever. Every breath swallowed by the pines. Every echo perfectly delayed. I whisper it under my breath, like a ritual I can't unlearn. not real. Real, not real. The deeper I go, the more familiar everything becomes. The information kiosk, still there, still wrong. Map looped into a perfect circle. Font mismatched. Plastic new. I trace the loop with my finger. The endpoint labeled Ranger Station. And under it, faintly scratched into the laminate, one word. Late. I walk on. The trail feels shorter this time. The bridge appears sooner than it should. Its boards clean, no graffiti, no moss. Just one carving, shallow and new. Back again. I look down into the creek. The water is still, perfectly still. Then it ripples once, not from wind or stone, but like something exhaled beneath it. For a moment, I see a reflection that isn't mine, smaller, younger, wearing the same badge. You finally made it back, it says. The hum begins again, faint under the ground, under my skin. It builds, slow and rhythmic, like a heartbeat sinking itself to mine. When I reach the clearing, the tower waits, taller now, shoulder high, warm to shoulder high, warm to the touch. I lay my hand on the stone, and it pulses once, answering me. That's when I see them, figures between the trees, motionless silhouettes, old uniforms, some in ranger jackets, some in canvas overalls, their eyes hollow, glowing faintly, as if filled with reflected fire. And in front of them, the child. Same badge, same cedar twig, same half-smile. We've been waiting, it says softly. Say the oath. I want to refuse, but my lips move before I can stop them. There and back, I whisper, and back again. The hum deepens, the ground trembles. The tower cracks open from within, spilling light that isn't light, a pale shimmer that bends everything around it. I step back, but there's nowhere to go. The doorframes return, moving silently through the trees, forming a ring around me. Each door shows a different reflection. In one I see Maya, still alive, writing her own report. In another I see Eula, older now, drawing circles in ash. In a third, I see myself, sitting in this chair, talking into the recorder, telling this story. I reach out toward it, fingers brushing the cold shimmer, and the reflection moves faster than I do. It smiles. You already told it, it says. Now, it tells you. 5 seconds. Jam 2 of life. 2 days of life riz over the static, soft, endless repetition. There and back again. I try to step away, but my feet won't move. The air feels thick, like walking through memory. The last thing I hear before the world goes quiet is my own voice on the radio. If you're hearing this, it already knows you. Layered. You don't believe me, do you? Silence. Then one last sound, a soft key chime, and everything fades.